Call the meeting to order of the Wright County Planning Commission for August 8th. First thing on the agenda tonight is to approve the meeting minutes from July 18th, 2024. Has everybody been able to look through them? And if so, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Any discussion? If there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if I will, I would like to petition one item on to the end of the agenda.
Okay,
Discussion on the December 12th meeting.
okay. We will add that to the end of the meeting. Number one on tonight's agenda is Brian Michelson. Anyone pertaining to that, you want to come up, give your name, please, for the record, and we will get started.
Sure. Evening, thank you. Brian Mickelson, 2195 Cameron Avenue Southeast.
Right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I really don't have a whole lot to add. This was heard at the last meeting. The commission scheduled a site inspection. We're out on the site on July 29th, so now we're just looking for which way the commission wants to go with it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just briefly, just a couple minutes, because I got to a couple unique circumstance, just one that I didn't get to. But I just want to talk about precedent in the area, okay? Answer any questions about when you guys are out on site. And I want to continue, Patrick, our conversation about the unique circumstances of why I think the R2A is the best thing to do. So the fact is, there's R2A in the area. It's not around the corner. It's not down the road. It's right next door. And precedent was set forth by this board. I know it was 2019. Some of you might have been here, some maybe not. But it was approved. And at that time, they thought it was a good idea. That's a 5-acre property. There's 2 5-acre properties. When we divide ours, Jody and I, both the properties are going to be bigger than what is minimum. And it's going to be actually 1.21 acres bigger than the minimum that you guys allow. So I think that's important. Precedent is important. The land use map says it can be done. And the concept plan, you know, it's a piece of paper. I get it. You guys see a lot of paper. But it's helpful, okay? You know, I came up with something here, just a quick little, and this is to go off, Patrick, your unique circumstance from 3 weeks ago. And it's if you guys all vote no, okay? You vote no, and this is done and over with. Let's just say you vote no, and we keep the property as is, okay? We don't divide it. And it has to do with when it was asked about the future people that move into my property, the future Mr. and Mrs. Mickelson. And basically it goes, if they got tons of toys and tons of money and he doesn't want to have that stuff outside, he's going to put up a shed. And if she wants to put up a barn, have horses, she can put up a shed. And basically, they can put up 15% of the property can have outbuildings. And on my property, 79,714 square feet of outbuildings can be put up if they meet all the setbacks and all the other regulations. And let's not even talk about the rule of 25 with they could put up a bunch of concrete as well. So what I'm getting at is if we split it, there's only going to be one house potentially built on that property. And that house, I'd argue all night long, that is 100 feet away from the drainage ditch that came up last time at this meeting. And I would argue that somebody that comes to my property stays as is, and they can put up basically unlimited amount of buildings or concrete, it is gonna cause an absolute disaster to water runoff and potential damage to my neighbors' properties. I guess to end this, I just want to say that there is a huge difference between what is best for the property, what I talked about where you guys do R2A and somebody can build a house at its closest point 100 yards away from the drainage ditch that came up last time 3 weeks ago. People were worried about this drainage ditch. Or you can follow the rules set forth, go down to planning and zoning, and you can basically put up as many buildings and pour as much concrete as you want. And I will argue all day long that that is gonna add way more runoff than a house that is 100 yards away from the drainage ditch. You know, over here, we got precedent, which is a big deal. We got the land use map with an additional 1.21 acres, not 5. And the unique circumstances that I just talked about where R2A will have way more less runoff than somebody that can just put up tons of buildings and pour tons of concrete, okay? That would basically end what I have to say, and I started this off. If there's any questions about the site visit, I'm more than happy to answer them now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just one bit of clarification. I do believe Mr. Michelson indicated 2019 for that R2A rezoning. That was actually 2011. So just a little bit of clarification.
Oh, thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Barry. Okay, is there anyone that would like to have any questions, or otherwise I'll open it up to the public first and then come back. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this? If you want to have a seat, if you want to come up, please, to the podium, give your name for the record, and we'll go from there.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, thank you for giving me this opportunity tonight. My name is Jeff Oliver. I live at 2306 Cameron Avenue Southeast, just down the street from the Mickelsons. I have not had the pleasure of meeting you. I'd like to get together and get to know you at some point in the future. I am here tonight representing the Dean Lake Improvement Association. I'm currently the president of the association. The folks that I've talked to in the neighborhood regarding the zoning request are not necessarily opposed to another single-family home in the area. I'm here to ask about additional considerations, including wetland protection. The association, as well as myself personally, I would like to see a wetland delineation done and delineation of the floodplain associated with the stream that Mr. Mickelson is referring to, and dedication of easements, either conservation or drainage and utility easements, over the highest elevation of those two, the wetland delineation or the 100-year high water level, in order to protect those resources and protect adjacent properties from flooding. In addition, consistent with state statute and common practice with subdivision of land, I would ask this planning commission to include a provision in your whichever direction you go, or subdivision, if you go subdivision route, to dedicate an easement for the good of the public, for a known public need. And I'm referring to a water quality best management practice that's been identified by Wright County Soil and Water Conservation District and the Crow River watershed. That stream that comes into Dean Lake across the Mickelson property is the single largest source of nutrients, namely phosphorus, into our lake. Our lake is on the MPCA impaired waters list for nutrients. We've got a horrible problem with blue-green algae there. June 10th of last year, there was such horrible mats of floating fluorescent green, blue-green algae all over the lake that we could not go down near the water because it smelled so bad, much less even think about going in and enjoying the water in June, early June. Thankfully, the rain this year has helped that condition and we haven't had those horrible blooms. But we'd like to see that easement dedicated as part of the first step of implementing the plans to improve the water quality and have Dean Lake removed off the impaired waters list. We've worked closely with staff at Soil and Water Conservation, and we believe that next year we're going to see some of the first steps towards improving our water quality. We're in the early phases of forming a lake improvement district to help fund those improvements, because clean water is in all of our best interest, not just those that live on the lake. This year we've been on the lake for a little over 3 years. We've had a very, very large number of people coming out to recreation, enjoy recreation fishing, water skiing, jet skis on the lake, like we have not seen since we've been on the lake. I thank you for that opportunity and for consideration of the Lake Association's request.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment on this matter? Anyone else that would like to comment on this matter? Just, you can come back up. Do you want any response to
You
what
could,
you brought up?
yeah, you could stay up here. I'm 100%, support what he said. If you guys were, I don't remember you here, Dan, 3 weeks ago, but I'm the one that's bringing this up. I'm the one that's talking about the drainage ditch. I'm the one that's talking about the creek and Dean Lake and the neighbors. I can't speak engineer, all right? But I totally support whatever needs to be done, because guys, I live across from the lake. I have a couple lots on the lake, but we smell it, and we live 400 feet away. Okay, so I get what they're saying, and I started this off talking about the creek. Like, I'm not going to sweep it underneath the rug. This isn't just about splitting the land. This is about, my neighbors want the lake to be better, and Soil and Water via email. We've been trying to work on this. Okay, so full support. I don't know what it takes. If somehow Dean Lake, I know you guys have it up there, if somehow the association or you guys or what have you, if they take somehow part of that tract A, because right here, guys, it's kind of hard to tell, but basically the choke point there, let's put an imaginary line, and that's tract A. That's the 6.21 acres. But maybe something can be done here for Dean Lake Association or some sort of parks thing where they own a little bit of this, property here, so they can dig it out, put some riprap in, and make it look nice and help the lake, because Wright County, it's terrible. And so, Jeff, I'm support whatever you guys need to do. I'm glad you showed up, and we'll just kind of work forward. It's not a yes or no, it's compromise. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Any comment here from the board or any questions? If you want to stay up here in case there's any questions for you.
Yeah, Chairman. So I had a question. We were out at the site visit, and Soil and Water were out there at the same time. That whole area, I know your argument of people coming in and pouring all kinds of cement and putting all kinds of buildings. I think that's pretty low, and that whole area was all just wetlands. Along that creek there, I think the only way you could actually build was when you got up to close to that shed that you have.
Correct.
So basically, I feel like the whole, if you divided the land, you're gonna maybe get not even an acre to have a homestead on it, because all that other area, I don't think a building permit would even be allowed, would it, Barry? Would you ever be able to put a building permit out in that area by that creek?
Well, I can't say definitively yes or no at this point. Wetland delineation will have to be done. If one gets done, that's gonna be at the subdivision stage of it. From a practical matter, just walking around out on the edge of it, highly unlikely. Soils aren't gonna be conducive for foundations and that kind of thing, so it's unlikely. You're really looking at an area basically from the south side of those two mound sites to the building and then 65 feet off the center of the road. So, right at the building, you're looking at an area from the building to the setback line of about maybe 70 feet. It gets wider as you go north. And then, it could extend to the west if you're out on the north side of the building. I mean, there is likely minimum buildable area there, which for our standards is 800 square feet. So it's not impossible. It's more about practicality and, what we generally see. Is there gonna be enough buildable area there for somebody to build a house that they want? Maybe not. Can't attach it to the pole barn because of setback restrictions and requirements. So you're basically gonna be building right up next to your pole barn. A lot of what we see is the pole barns are behind the house, hidden, or in some fashion, not as visible as this one's going to be. So there again, it's all about desire of a proposed owner or a prospective buyer on what they want, and it's whether or not they can or can't do it.
And then question, did Soil and Water ever respond or have any comment about that? Because they were out there at the same time that we were.
No, that's not what they look at. That's our job.
Oh, okay.
Now, I did have discussions with them on the site about, potential wetland locations, and they think it's gonna be someplace right up close to those two mound sites.
So you asked a question, yep, about build site. And yes, you said something about building down by the creek. Like nobody would ever build down there.
Yeah.
You would build a little bit behind the shed, 40, 50 feet away from the shed. You guys saw that slope. You could build there. You could also build to the east of the shed. There's a great big flat point, and I don't know all the rules, so how far does a house have to stay off the road?
65 feet from the site.
There's more than enough room if you guys want to do another site visit. You could build a house. There's 2 house building points on that property in between the shed and those proposed mound systems. I mean, there's 50 yards.
But what about the septic?
It's right there. Oh, you guys don't. Yeah, I mean the
You saw it staked
the
out.
septic tanks, the septic and all that stuff would be 50, 60 feet away from the house. Potential house build.
Yeah.
You guys know where it would be up on the hill. I mean, it's not going to be
Very-
down in.
Very small area.
It wouldn't be down in there, and people keep talking about that it's a meadow or this or that or the other thing. Like, we bale that. We bale hay. Okay? It's not a swamp. There's no cattails there. We bale hay. Thousands of pounds of tractors and this and that on that, and we got first crop in, even with all this rain. So it's not a meadow. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns?
Mr. Chair, could I ask Mr. Oliver to come back up, please? No, Mr. Oliver, you were mentioning something about a public easement or an easement granted to perhaps the Lake Association to get in there and do something. Now, the way I see it is that, yes, I'm quite familiar with the dilemma on Dean Lake, And, but I see this as just one small segment of the problem. The problem is probably further west, where this creek is gaining water from runoff. And this, going through this small portion of property is just one little segment of the whole big problem. So therefore, Mr. Oliver, what would be your proposal to help clean up Dean Lake relative to what this gentleman is proposing for his land?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Felger, there are multiple sources of phosphorus into Dean Lake. This stream, through the total maximum daily load study, has been identified as the single largest input. I'm not 100% certain of what is tributary. It comes from the northwest along Calder. There's that, for lack of a better thing, the bog down to the east of the roadway near the dairy farm. That is the source. And the single largest total phosphorus source is an internal load from decades and decades of the watershed contributions into the lake. The Soil and Water Conservation District and the Total Maximum Daily Load Study have identified a number of different smaller improvements, including some way on this stream between 20th and Cameron to slow the water down, allow the sediments to settle out. The sediments are holding on to the phosphorus, something that can be maintained, and those are details that need to be worked out who would maintain. So it's going to be a series of things, including people like me stabilizing their lakeshore buffer strips and preventing lawn nutrients from going in. So it's not a single minute project or a specific project. It's a big picture solution that would ultimately, at some point in time, end up with a alum treatment in the lake to bind that phosphorus into the bottom sediments. And that treatment, it's very expensive, but that treatment would be effective for 20 or more years. And we anticipate that treatment would, after all the other projects, would potentially take the lake off of the impaired waters list.
Well, let's hope so. Now, this gentleman's potential contribution to that effort, that's not the total solution to the whole problem, is it?
That's correct.
Okay, and you and I are
It's a
in
piece of the
agreement.
pie.
A piece of the pie, okay, that's kind of where I was going with this.
And if I may, I would suggest that the easement, if it's made a requirement, that the easement run in favor of the county, so that Soil and Water Conservation District could be, potentially be the lead agency on maintenance of that facility, and/or the township. And I would envision that a partnership between the township, the Lake Association, and Soil and Water Conservation would be the solution for long-term maintenance. Our group is certainly willing, and speaking on my own, knowing a lot of my neighbors, I think we would be very willing to contribute to maintenance of best management practice there.
Thank you, Mr. Eller. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments?
So to
Go ahead, Barry.
talk to Commissioner Holland's point, so I kind of just did a quick rough math. So the orange hatch is the 65-foot setback from the center of the road, which is selected in that real light blue. You have a side yard setback here of 30 feet, so I put a buffer on that. This blue line would, just looking at the survey, roughly represent the southern edge of the drain field area, or the septic areas, plus or minus. And so from that, there's a 20-foot setback in addition to that. So from here, there's also an additional 20 feet. And so this is more or less your buildable area right in there. So it's not, I'm not saying it's small. It is a little bit harder to manage because of the location of the existing building, but it's possible to get a minimum size dwelling in there. There again, I can't speak to exactly what would go in there until somebody would would show me a plan, but this would give you the rough area of, a rough amount of buildable area on that high spot.
Thanks, Barry.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair. So, as I said before at our last meeting, as far as the splitting of this property into an R2A, it fits well within the plan of the property surrounding it. The property next to it has already been rezoned R2A. As far as the building site, it is tough, but it can be done. I know builders are quite adept to, a good builder will be able to work around something like that, I believe. When it comes to the way this property is set up, and as far as the wetland issues, is that something, looking for direction from council maybe, is that something we would deal with in the next phase if it's approved?
Mr. Chair, Member Bravender, at this point in time, we only deal with zoning and recommending that over to the county board. The subdivision does come later, and with that, we can do wetland delineations and other conditions and other placement items at that point in time. Right now, we're solely dealing with zoning.
Okay, thank you.
In that hearing, though, I don't think we could require an easement as part of that being to anybody's favor.
Generally, no, we wouldn't. I mean, there'd have to be a reason that would be reasonably calculated and related to what the use is and what the condition is. Generally, in planning, we require it all around for, a normal dedication to the public for drainage and utilities, but generally on an unplatted subdivision, we don't do that.
The only time I can recall seeing them is when we have shared driveways for access along county highways.
And at that, we require it to be executed. It's not part of the plat. It's a separate document that's recorded afterwards.
And that would be up to the landowner to do that. I mean, if he wanted to give easement, he would have to do that, or they
That is
would have
correct.
to do that
Yes.
on their own.
Yep.
Not through this board or,
This board can put conditions that are reasonably related to the request.
Okay.
You'd have to make that determination.
okay, thank you.
And that would be, I'm sorry, and that would be through the development phase, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right? Any other comments, concerns? Pat?
Mr. Chair, Barry, you talked about that prior switch to R2A on that adjacent property was in 2011. Do you have anything in the file in front of you as to what the basis was for that decision?
I'd have to look through and read the minutes. They considered a unique circumstance of infill in an already developed area of a similar manner
Okay.
and adjacent to developed areas with smaller lot sizes. Does not create a new zoning district in a previously undeveloped area.
So they just recited the standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ken?
Mr. Chair, the variance was granted for the shed placement with the back,
Yes, Barry?
is that correct?
Yes.
Barry? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Placement and size. So this gets approved, subdivision gets approved, they can't have so much as a garden shed there. They're maxed out with that building. In fact, they're oversized with an approved variance.
That was my question. That shed is oversized, but it had a variance to do it.
It had a variance in relation to this hearing. So without the variance, they couldn't even apply to do the subdivision because the garage or the shed would be oversized for the size of lot they were looking to create. So we required the variance prior to even having this application.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Somebody ready to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion. I'd like to recommend approval to the County Board of Commissioners to rezone PID 215, 100, 162, 200 from AR Agricultural Residential to S2 Residential Shoreland to R2A Suburban Residential, S2 Residential Recreational Shoreland, because it finds the properties aligned with the goals and policies of the Northeast Quadrant Land Use Plan, and the township approves.
I would second that, Mr. Chair.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may, not knowing how the commission is going to find that, there should be some justification in that rare and unique finding as part of this, as was articulated in the 2011 for the property next door. And that's completely at the discretion of the commission on what those reasons are. But we should probably articulate why this is rare and unique.
It doesn't have to be rare. That's not the standard, right? Standard is unique circumstances.
Unique
Such
circumstances, yes.
as, and it goes
Unique
on.
circumstances, yes.
Right.
Infill was one.
You just want that as part of the discussion, or you want that as part of the motion? Because that's what Dan articulated before he made his motion,
It
why
should
he
be-
was going to.
It should be part of the motion, I would think. I mean, that's what we did in the previous one, and that's, in this case, we haven't, this is one of the first ones we've had of this type where we need to make those findings. Every one I've seen that came before us that you guys haven't approved, not saying same situation, but we've had the Lakeshore ones and those types of things, and we haven't had to articulate it because most of those have been denied. So I just thought it would be a good idea to articulate that way the commissioners, the county commissioners can see that when they hear this, when we get it on their agenda.
Is there anything you want to articulate with your motion?
I would add to the motion, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I would add to the motion that this property fits into the adjoining property that in 2011 was rezoned to R2A also, so therefore it is not hopscotch zoning, it is contiguous.
Does that go along with your second?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, is there any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and not that I am necessarily going to vote with you on this, but the second item that's listed there is that it's adjacent to smaller lot sizes too, and so I would think, I guess I wouldn't understand why you wouldn't also include that as a reason for approval in addition to the infill areas.
The lot size on the lake. are you
The,
referring
right,
to?
the standard gives us an example, right? It says these infill areas, and then another example is where it's adjacent to smaller lot sizes and serves as a transition area. And so I'm just wanting to make sure that when this issue comes up again and somebody else gets to look back on a decision some other board made 12 years ago and try and articulate why it was a good decision then and how it's leading us to make potentially a decision today without a ton of basis. I'd just like the motion to be as
I would consider
detailed
that
as
a friendly
possible.
amendment to the motion, that the adjacent lot sizes, the smaller lot sizes on the lake are also contiguous to this plan, so is that good enough?
It's your motion. I'm not trying to.
No, I agree with you on that addition, I do.
Okay. Ken,
How far are we going to take this thing?
till discussion stops.
All right, I'll go along with it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, my discussion on this is that I don't like the language of our ordinance, which talks about unique circumstances and then provides 3 separate examples that are broadly applicable as the circumstances that are somehow unique. Those can't be unique and common at the same time. The fact that in 2011, a prior board, and I don't know if any of you 3 were even on it back then, or Jan, if you've been around since then, but I mean, you look at the justification that they made then, and they created 2 5-acre lots, where you look around, there aren't 5-acre lots. They're bigger than that. But somehow, that decision that they made 13 years ago sets off a chain of events that we get to look at 13 years later and describe it as infill for an area. The exception sort of defeats the rule. But as it stands now, it is consistent with infill in the area based on that decision that was made 13 years ago. And I think he's got a well-reasoned motion, as bad as our standard is.
Well, I appreciate the comments, and it's 2024, and I think this should stand the way it is.
Okay. Any other discussion? There's no other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same way.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Let it show that Sandy and Jeannie voted against. Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Appreciate it.
Number 2 on tonight's agenda is Joseph Holthouse. If you want to come up, give your names, please, for the record, and we will get started.
Joe Holthouse, Monticello Township for gravel expansion.
You too. Yes, Mr. Chairman, similar to the previous one, the commission heard this at the last meeting, conducted a site inspection on the 29th, so now we're here to find some resolution that the commission is looking for.
Okay. You want to give your name for the record, and then
Yep, I'm John Wilkosh with Valley Paving Incorporated. We are the contractor that is mining the area.
okay. And do you have anything you want to add, Mr. Holthouse?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's pretty, you guys got to look at it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory how it works,
Okay.
what we're doing. If you got any questions, shoot at me.
Yep. First, maybe we'll go to the public. Is there anyone here in the public that would like to comment on this matter? Anyone from the public? I guess we're back up here. Does anybody have some questions, concerns about this applicant?
I have a question.
Jan?
I was looking here at the information that was provided to us by Barry, and it says in here that upon completion of mining, the mine would be restored. Now, when would that be restored, do you think?
It'll be restored in phases. I project the first phase is which we're mining in now, the original 39 acres, which is on the east side of the 80 that we're proposing to open up. That should be starting to get restored in the next 3 to 5 years. We are still currently mining in there, and we will work our way west. So we are in the process of bringing in common excavation and starting to backfill as we speak now
Yeah.
in certain areas of the pit. So.
Yeah, I understand that, but the area that you're going to be starting to mine, when do you expect that that would be restored?
Well, that'll be in phases. I mean, totally restored as big as the area is, we're looking at 80 acres, totally said and done, you're probably looking at 25 to 30 years.
But as you finish mining, you'll just keep
Yeah, we
adding?
typically take in 5 to 7 acre increments,
Okay.
so.
Now, are you I read that you're planning to stockpile the black dirt that you're removing from there?
Yep.
And you're not planning to sell that, are you? You're just going to keep it there?
No, it will stay on site and it's used for restoration. It'll be used as our screening berms, so we push that in a pile and then,
Okay.
along with some of the clay, and then, as it's mined out, the berms come back down and goes over the top, so.
Okay.
And I think the county has a requirement on so much black dirt, I'm sure it's 6 to 8 inches or whatever
6
it
inches,
requires.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I guess that answers my questions that I have right now, unless something else comes up later here. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns?
Nope.
Guess we were all out there, or many of us were out there for a site inspection. We've been out on the property before. I guess is somebody prepared to make a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Sandy?
I would move that an interim use permit for the expansion of the existing mining operation to include the 80 acres to the west, sorry, I don't have my glasses with me, as proposed and described in the approved EAW, and in the plan and description provided by the applicant with the following conditions. 1, all performance standards for mining in the Wright County Code of Ordinance must be followed, especially regarding dust control, hours of operation, reclamation, annual reporting, a financial guarantee, and screening. Number 2, screening along the north boundary of the pit must be completed before Phase 5 begins. Number 3, every effort should be made to reclaim previous phases before entering new phases while leaving enough of the pit open for operations. Number 4, any changes in access or expansion of operations will require a new interim use permit. Number 5, the applicant shall provide a performance bond, cash escrow, or an irrevocable letter of credit from reliable surety institution in the amount of $400,000 or other amount applicable to the Planning Commission to guarantee compliance with the mining and extraction portion of the Wright County Code of Ordinance. Number 6, unless a new interim use permit is approved, this permit will expire 10 years from the date of this approval, and the operation will have to be completed and reclaimed by that time.
All right, I have a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah?
I guess I'd like some discussion on the surety bond and just if I could ask how the 400,000 came about.
The ordinance states 5,000 per permitted acre.
Okay,
So they're opening up 80 acres, or that's what the proposal is. So it's 5,000 per acre. That was part of what came out of the gravel work group and adopted by the county board when the ordinance was amended.
and my question was because of the size of the pit, is it something we should look at maybe decreasing a little bit on that surety bond, or what's the board's thoughts on that?
I would say in this case, since they haven't showed any, they could potentially open all 80 acres up as part of this 10-year pit if material goes out fast enough. That's why we put in the permitted acreage. If they would have came in and asked for a permit for only open up 10 acres at a time, a little bit easier to deal with. In this case, it was all 80 acres.
And why would we do it for them if we just changed the ordinance?
So when I was reading the minutes that they presented to the township, Monticello Township, I think they mentioned maybe 30 to 40 years you'd be working in this area. That's why I was bringing this up, because just trying to have some discussion on that. Okay?
Okay. Any other thoughts? I have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same way. Motion carries. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, number 3 on the agenda tonight is Donovan DeMarais.
I'm Paul Otto with Otto Associates representing Donovan.
All right, Barry, when you are ready.
Just one second, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's similar to the previous two. The commission discussed this in July, did a site inspection on the 29th. We're here to either recommend approval or not recommend approval of the rezoning to the county board.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think most of the members here got a chance to see what we're up to, what we're trying to do, and certainly take any questions or comments, but again, we're just at rezoning phase.
Okay. Is there any questions here, or I will go to the public? Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter? Is there anyone from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back up to here. Any questions, concerns? for the applicant?
I think the only concerns I would have, Mr. Chair, would be probably in the development phase when they start putting in driveways and approaches. I don't know if that'd be dealt with now, but it was quite low in that whole area when we visited it. And I know the township would want their input in that, so just for the record, I think that needs to be visited if it does get approved for the rezoning, and in the development phase, those driveways get issued with township input.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Addressed.
Any other comments, questions? Is somebody prepared to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll prepare to make a motion. I'd like to recommend approval to the County Board of Commissioners to rezone PID 216-000-111-401 from Ag General Agriculture to S2 Residential Recreational Shoreland to AR Residential, Agricultural Residential, and S2 Residential Shoreland because it finds the property is aligned with the goals and policies of the Northwest Quadrant Land Use Plan and the township has approved.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 4 on the agenda tonight is Jane Shanks. You want to give your name for the record and we'll go from there.
Jane Shanks.
Barry, when you are ready.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. There we go. This property was before the commission in February of 2024 with the rezoning phase. This is the subdivision end of it. The rezoning was to R2A. The concept plan is for 3 lots, all over 5 acres, all having at least 300 feet on the road. The lake shore with what will be Lot C is a non-conforming, but it's non-conforming in its current 16-acre state. So we consider that just an existing condition that we're going to continue with the subdivision on. So I really don't have a whole lot more to add. The township has recommended approval of the request, and we have not had any other comments.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add?
The only thing I'd like to say is this process was all new to me, and Josh in the office here was wonderful at answering my questions. So just a comment about that.
I'll certainly mention that to him. The one thing with this is if the commission does approve it, the recorder's office and the land records offices are updating Torrens information, and we did find out recently that this is a Torrens property. So if approved as an unplatted subdivision, there still will need to be a document that's very similar to a plat. It's called a registered land survey. So in essence, it's quasi-platted, but it's done through title examiner, certificates of title. And so there's quite a bit of work to actually bring this to the end of it. It's not like our normal unplatted subdivisions where they can just transfer the deeds. There's going to be some extra surveyor work and legal work that has to be done because the property is a Torrens property, which regardless of how we think of it, that's legal requirements for the chain of title.
Okay.
So just so everyone's aware of it.
Well, I didn't understand any of that, frankly.
Your surveyor will help you out with it.
Okay.
This looks like an auto plot and he's still here. Is this yours, Paul? He knows what to do.
Were you aware of it, Paul? I didn't know either until like 2 weeks ago, and I looked and it's like, it's blue on Beacon. It's like, oh, where did that come from?
Paul will help you. He's good at this.
Okay. Is there any other questions from here? Everybody happy with what they're seeing? Is there anyone in the public that has any comments? Anyone from the public? We have a quiet public.
That's okay.
If not, we'll bring it back up here. And if we don't have any comments up here, are we ready for a motion?
Clear from this end of the table here.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve a conditional use permit for a 3-lot unplatted subdivision in accord with the survey completed by Auto Associates dated 5/15/2024, project number 230475, with the following conditions. If required by Silver Creek Township, access permits must be obtained prior to any construction activity commencing. And 2, per the feedlot regulations, cattle and swine are prohibited. All livestock must be at least 300 feet from the lake. Properties will be allowed 1/2 animal unit per acre and are limited to less than 10 animal units regardless of parcel size. And I don't have to say anything, Barry, on the registered land survey as a condition of what we're doing.
That's all legal requirements that we don't have
outside.
to condition.
Wonderful.
Right, I have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Number 5 is Aaron Aho. Want to come up and give your name, please? And we will get started.
Aaron Howe, property owner at 2895 County Road 4, Southwest.
All right, Barry, when you're ready.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a roughly 5.6 acre piece of property, southwest corner of 28th Street and County Road 4 in Cokato Township. It was rezoned R2A in, Josh didn't put the date here, I think 2003. And this request is to rezone it again to R2. It is residential large lot, and the land use plan, as mentioned, was rezoned to R2A. His request is to rezone to R2, which would then be followed by a, what would end up having to be a platted subdivision to create 2.5 acre, roughly 2.5 acre lots. As per subdivision ordinances, anything less than 5 acres requires platting, so these would end up having to be platted lots. We did receive approval from Cokato Township, and the city of Cokato has also commented, and they had no issues.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Anything you would like to add?
I guess the only thing I would add is there's been a couple parcels to the north that have been rezoned in a similar manner to this, so kind of sets precedent, but that's about all.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment? Anyone from the public? If not, we'll bring it back up here.
Mr. Chair, I have a question of our administrator. Could you clarify now, currently it is zoned R2A, which bears a 5 acre minimum, is that correct?
Correct.
And then on the land use plan, it says a residential large lot. What does that encompass?
Residential large
In terms of
lot is.
lot size.
It could be varying lot sizes, R2, R2A, and if I remember the land use plan correctly, which I don't have it in front of me, it's in those unique circumstances of infill and other things, it could go down as far as R1. But there's special provisions to go any lower than R2. So the R1 would be
the
special
current
provisions.
current land use plan for the southwest corridor then, the definition of residential large lot under land use plan does include 2.5 acre lots.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, appropriate zonings may include agricultural, residential, R2A, and in special cases, R2. Rezoning from agricultural to residential generally be considered appropriate for large lot parcels and for smaller sizes, R2, in cases where existing development trends or environmental factors are appropriate.
Thank you.
That was in D of your land use plan, or of your staff report.
Any other questions? Concerns?
I would have a question.
Pat?
Under our standard, the R2 can be allowed in special cases, and so I'm wondering what we have that would make, and maybe the applicant can come up and talk about it a little bit, other than the fact that across the street it was done. What's special about this one that would justify going from the R2A down to the R2?
Like, I mean, I guess just the general area, I would say within a half mile north or south is more dense than what I currently have here. There's obviously the campground that is on the west side of the property and the east side. So I don't know, I guess I would argue that that's special. You know, just the density in the area. So
Okay. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, just one comment about the lot. If you look at the sketch plan that he has up here for the division, the property next to 28th Street, which is the road that goes down to the boat landing, we happen to be in a meeting with the DNR, and Dan Nudo from Wright County was there. And I did make the comment to Dan in regards to this property, if he saw any wetlands in there just from his observation, and he said he didn't. So there's no official report from him on that, but I did ask him about that because I did have a heads up that this may be coming down the road. So I asked Dan about it while we were down there in another meeting. So that's my only comment.
Any other comments, concerns? How would the board want to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion
Okay,
to recommend approval to the County Board of Commissioners to rezone PID 205-000-144402 from R2A Suburban Residential and S2 Residential Recreation Shoreland to R2 Suburban Residential and S2 Residential Recreational Shoreland because it finds the property is in line with the goals and policies of the Northwest Quadrant Land Use Plan. And correct me, Dan, if I'm mistaken, it was approved by the township?
Correct.
And it was approved by the township.
I'll second.
motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All the same way?
Aye.
Let it show that Pat voted against. Motion passes. All right, number 6 is Hans Melgard. If you want to come up, please, to the podium and give your name for the record, and we will get going.
I am Hans Melgard, and we are here for 12500 Grover Avenue Northwest.
Okay, Barry, when you are ready.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this property, as you can see, actually in the notice map, staff do a good job of taking stuff out, was originally an 80-acre parcel, and Mr. Mergard has worked with our staff and the township staff to get a division of the existing home onto a 10-acre parcel using entitlement divisions. The township has extended their right-of-way there, the road portion, so that the division could take place, plus give the remaining 70 acres, the proper amount of road frontage. So although in the aerial, it looks like it's 80, it's actually a 70-acre parcel, more similar to what it shows here. This request is for a non-commercial contractor's yard, which would include roughly 18,000 square foot building at some point on the property for the applicant's contracting business, plumbing, heating, and septic services. The narrative floor plan of the building have all been included in your packets. Township have indicated approval of the request. There was one neighbor that did express some concerns about this being a dump site, but otherwise doesn't have concerns about the contractor's yard. And then we did get one late response that I put in your packet from another resident in the area that indicated similar things. They're not necessarily concerned about the contractor's yard portion, but the having a home there so it doesn't become a dump site. So in this particular case, the home isn't built yet, so this is similar to one that we had in Monticello Township, where if the commission's going to approve, there will be some conditions on the house getting built within a time frame and the property being homesteaded within a time frame, because those are the two non-exceptions to the contractor rule, that those two things have to take place. So that's all I got.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add to that?
As far as the house and the shop are, just because of the way the time frame has gone on through the summer, they are gonna happen basically simultaneously. As far as the dump site goes, it won't be. Legally, it could be. I mean, as far as MPCA rules, it does meet setbacks, and it is ag land. But we're living there. It's not going to be, and we're respectful of everybody around us, and we try to treat everything like we have neighbors right next to us. So we're currently running our business out of our house as well. We're just doing this to get a bigger shop because we can't add on to the shop where we're at. We don't have enough acreage. But we've never had a problem, so.
Okay. Does anybody have here? Otherwise, I'll go to the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment? If you want to just have a seat.
Yep.
And then please give your name for the record.
Doreen Piper, 12465 County Road 7, which is off this property. And I'm here for other neighbors. And the letter that they referenced is one that I thought was a little more, I don't know, I can't think of the right word. It's my old age. Anyway, I would like to read that. I mean, you may have it in front of you. But there were more concerns. One of them was the dumping is the main thing. It's right north of Sugar Lake. The lake is in horrible shape already. And so that is our main concern. And the fact that he will be living there is, you know, very helpful to know. So I would think he wouldn't do that on his own property. It was the non-commercial status that some of us couldn't understand. There is a property up 7 that had to move because they had, I don't know, like a construction company out of there. And they were told they had to go commercial. So there's just a concern is why is this non-commercial if he's gonna have trucks in and out is. And then there was something about it's just an interim use permit. No idea what that is or why it's interim. Is this going to come up in 5 years again, or I don't know. And it's in an ag zone now. And it should be absolutely in writing or in the whatever you call it, that he cannot dump. That is our one main concern. And then the noise of trucks going in and out. County Road 7's horrible anyway, but adding more trucks to it. That's our concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else that would like to comment? Anyone else from the public that would like to comment? If not, we'll bring it back up here. If the applicant wants to come up in case there's any questions or anything for him.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to kind of answer the questions
and then Barry, if you
regarding
wanna-
the public's
terms of-
comments? So if I remember the property up 7 correctly, that was actually in an AR zoning district, which prohibits contractors' yards, non-commercial contractors' yards. And so that's why that one had to move. In this particular case, the non-commercial contractor's yard is in regard to the actual zoning that the property is in. So contractors' yards are commercial by nature, so are a lot of things. It's considered non-commercial because it's going to be allowed to be placed on a non-commercial property. This is still an ag-zoned property. It's not a commercially zoned property. So we get an industrial zone property, it's a contractor's yard, not a non-commercial. It's just a straight-up contractor's yard because it is on a commercial property. This property, tax classifications will probably split class it and do part residential, part commercial, and then part ag waste or rural resource land or whatever else they call it with the trees. But from a zoning standpoint, it's still zoned agricultural. We're just allowing a commercial operation on an agriculturally zoned property. So those are the answers to those questions.
All right, thank you, Barry. Do we have any questions, concerns for the applicant?
If I may too, it's me and my son, you know, so we don't have a lot of I mean, we have a lot of equipment, but can only drive one thing at a time. And so it's not, employees are too expensive. And at best, we'll have one, you know, someday down the road to lighten the load a little bit, but it won't be by any means a huge operation.
Okay. Dan, did you have something?
Yeah, just a question in regards to a dump site. It was brought up a couple times. Why is this such an issue? Is it because of like water softeners you're bringing in there and dumping, or?
No, so
I'm trying
we're pumping sewage. I mean, we're a
Right.
septic pumping.
And so you're, okay.
And so we land apply as much as we can.
So what if you can't land apply it, then what?
Then we have to haul to the sewer plant.
Okay,
So when we can't, like currently, because of the monsoons we've been getting,
Yep.
we have to haul to Watertown to the sewer plant. And
Okay.
so we land apply, we have a lot of fields, a lot of acreage that we lease in different areas in the county. So that way we're close to where we're working, or also weather. You know, one might get 2 inches of rain, one might not get any rain. But the land application keeps the cost down for the customers and makes it more accessible for us.
okay.
And then actually in our office, we do hear a bit about that. I mean, it's getting tougher and tougher. You know, locally, cities' wastewater treatment plants are getting closer and closer to capacity. They don't want to accept the waste, or they charge a fairly significant charge to dump it there.
It's becoming a big problem.
Fewer and fewer farmers are letting you land apply, so it's becoming a increasing problem that at some point the state's probably gonna have to address, because I don't know how else it can be done. I mean, it's getting to a point where I know it's, in the industry, there's talk about it quite
Yeah.
a bit.
And the state would rather have us land apply than I mean, we treat it with lime to boost the pH and kill the bacteria, and the minute we put lime in the truck, the odor's gone. So that's for us personally, that's the biggest benefit of lime, is that our shop doesn't smell like the tank that we just pumped. But yeah, if there's any other questions or concerns with that, I mean, I'm more than happy
Mr.
to
Chair,
answer
I have a
anything.
question of Mr. Melgard. You don't apply on this 80, do you? Might
No,
apply?
we'd have to, so let me start. Legally, we could. I mean, it meets certain setbacks. Could we spread on the whole thing? No, that whole northern area is very low. The rest of it is all woods. I mean, you can drive a four-wheeler through it and that's it. So the answer is, it would be very difficult to do it. And we bought it because of the fact that it's wooded, and we want to keep it that way.
I just asked you that because I think I may have read some comment that there was a concern that you're actually going to be applying this sewage to your property. So just to allay any fears in the neighborhoods.
No.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments, questions? I guess my one question, comment, I live up there in that area. And I know the property and the township has approved, so obviously they're okay with you coming in with trucks on that township road
Yeah.
back in there. How much is going to be sitting outside? Will everything be in the shed? Are you gonna have trucks, trailers, a lot of stuff, a lot of things being stored outside?
That's the goal with building as big of a shed that we're building, is to try to get everything inside. Because that's the problem we have right now, is that I have equipment sitting outside. And it's not good for the equipment to sit outside. So that's the goal of having this building, is that we can get everything inside. I mean, is there gonna be a trailer out here and there? I'm sure there will be, but nobody will be able to see it. It's completely in the middle of the property.
Okay.
So
And as far as lighting on the shed,
I like things dark.
okay, there won't be any light.
I like
shining
looking
into
at my
any
stars.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, concerns?
I have a question.
if you want to have a seat.
Yep.
Public, come up. Give your name, please, for the record.
I'm Janet Cafferty. I live at 12441, just off of County Road 7. And my question is, should at some point in time there be land application? Is there a requirement for him to build like a pit of any sort, like dairy farmers have?
Units.
Would- Well, we got to wait so you get on record. Do you have anything else? Otherwise,
Well, that would be my concern. I mean, the DNR or MPCA right now says that it is okay, but with sewage plants, as was talked, are getting to capacity, then what? You know, so that would be my question, and if that was gonna happen, does he come back to the board, the planning commission, to get that done?
Okay.
Okay?
all right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, before Hans answers that question, a question for Greg, when you have a minute. On the conditions that we can place on this, if Hans says, I'm not gonna be land applying on this property, and I don't care if you put a condition on it that says I won't do that, and I might put you on the spot with that question in a second, but we don't regulate the application of sewage through a non-commercial contractor's yard interim use permit. Is that a condition that you would or would not advise we pursue on this IUP?
Mr. Chair, Member Malberg, the Planning Commission could put that condition on this property to prohibit land application. Generally, land application, as you stated, is regulated by the MPCA. It's not something our feedlot administrator manages, but if the commission wanted to say on this particular property, given the operation and what's going on here, we're prohibiting land application here, I mean, that would be a very reasonable request. You have a body of water over on the eastern side of it. You have small lot development all around it. That'd be a very reasonable request to put in.
Okay. I wouldn't mind hearing from Hans on whether you would just agree you don't care if the IUP says you won't do land application on this parcel.
I guess I would like it to, so we're not running all the time, but there could be an instance where we've got an emergency job, we've got conditions are right that we can spread. I mean, we treat it well. So I would appreciate not having a restriction on there. I understand if you do, I'm not gonna fault it either way, but we operate under the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency rules and regulations.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. Go ahead. How does that work, Hans, with, you say you meet the setbacks and everything, you could apply out here on parts of it if you wanted to. Is that a right that, if I've got a big enough property, I can enter into an agreement with a sewage removal company?
Yeah, I could lease land from you the way we lease land from anybody else. And
is there an MPCA additional permit that the landowner, or that is specific to the land?
It's a lease agreement, and then the PCA has basically a copy of the picture that we're looking at right now with an outline of where we're spreading. And then as the years go on, we can move that around. And they very seldom review it. It's just that they have it. And then the agreement of the lease carrying that wordage in there.
Got it. So on this one, if you're owning it, you're not gonna have a lease agreement to submit, but you'd have something that you would submit ahead of time to PCA that says, here's the areas that we may apply.
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
That's exactly how it works. And then the reality is that there isn't enough acreage to run on, like we run on 80 acre pieces, and we typically run on 40 acres of that 80. The land here, the way it's set up, that's why I say for emergency purposes, because it might be something where we need to get one load out. You know, we're not going there, it's not feasible, or do we have the room to run all day on that piece of land? Every day of the week.
How do you land apply on a forested area?
It's tricky. So the PCA says you can't overload the woods. The trees will suck up all the nutrients that you can give it. So there is actually not a load limit on a wooded area. But you have to have roads going through it because the truck can't just sit and dump. You have to be moving to get rid of that material. In this, like something like that, you'd have to cut paths through so you'd have room for the truck because you can't just back up and let it go. And so that's, to answer your question, trees are a great absorbent of it, but it's very difficult to do.
And so if there were a middle ground to talk about that would potentially address a concern of, folks living out in the country near the lakes, some smaller lot sizes around. I hear what you're saying about emergencies, and I also certainly understand that even though you're in the business, you get it, you treat it with lime, and it's probably a less noticeable application than cow or other manure is.
Very much so.
Yep, but still, the idea is different.
Yeah.
For people and for neighbors.
Yeah.
And so if there's some condition that says that there's not going to be land application allowed, except in the event of an emergency
Correct.
application.
Yeah.
That would, I guess, it's just a middle ground to think about, I guess, if there's, I don't know enough about the sewage business to know when there's an emergency. Or if it's something that, sorry?
What would define an emergency?
So if we're on one job close to, we're close to a field, or we're close to here, or it's middle of the night, and we came back and the truck is full, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I gotta go. Well, if I only have 2,000 gallons on the truck, it's treated and we can spread that. That's the limit that we're looking at. We can't, there just isn't the real estate to run time after time. It's purely a instance of needing to, because like I said, we're gonna be living there too. So that's the other side of it. It's not like it's just a vacant area.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Melgard, when you're applying this to fields, do you trench it in or?
No, so when we treat it with lime, we actually pressurize the truck and broadcast it out. So by the time, let's say our typical rotation is an hour to an hour and a half from leaving the field to the time we come back to the field. By the time I come back, this time of year, it's dry because it's sprayed out. It's not just blobbed out, it's broadcast out.
How frequently can you reapply the same field?
Oh, the ones we're on where it's crop field, it's hay ground or crop field, we can go back over that. We could, if I had enough trucks or if I had enough me going around, I could cover a field twice in one day. But it's just, we can't physically do that. There isn't enough me to go around. But as far as what you're talking about for load limits, depending on the crop, the load limits vary, but it's excessive. I mean, we can't reach it.
Right. Okay, so one thing that's troubling me about this is now all of a sudden this emergency situation came up, and I guess I need a more clear definition of what emergency means. Now, you mentioned a scenario where it's 3 o'clock in the morning, your truck's full, you got to dump it so you can go somewhere else. That doesn't sound like a good emergency situation to me.
Well, let's say I came back from one and I got back to the shop, like it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And you have sewage backing up in your basement and you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning. I have a full truck. Well, I can save a half hour, 45 minutes if it's already treated. I can save that by putting it on my field and getting to you. That's, it speeds up the process.
Yeah, I understand that.
We try not to ever have a truck full because I always go to bed knowing that my truck is empty.
That
So
sounds
that
like
way
good
I'm
practice.
ready to go.
That sounds like a great bit of practice.
Right.
Now, I forgot what I was going to say now. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Chairman, I have two sisters in the septic business, and like he said, they want their trucks empty at the end of the night. But if it's raining
Right.
and you have a lot of people and you're going in and you're coming in at 10 o'clock at night, there are calls with people crying on the phone. And so I understand where this gentleman is, and you gotta realize too, these are big trucks, and you're looking at this, it would be very difficult to land apply. I mean, it will be emergencies only, because like, there's a lot of wooded areas there, if I'm right.
Yeah, we made maple syrup last year because there's a lot of maple trees.
Yeah.
And it's thick.
Mr. Chair, one follow-up, I guess. Hans, what do you do right now if you find yourself in that circumstance where you have a full truck and it's 2 a.m? Just so I understand it, you'll still take the call. You got to go out to your field
We go to
in the
whatever
middle of
field.
the night and do it, and it just takes you an extra hour.
Yeah, so depending on where I gotta go, depends on what field I go to,
Gotcha.
what direction I'm going.
Mr. Milgaard, Mr.
fascinating.
Chair. I'm sorry, are we done?
No, I was just saying it's fascinating.
Oh, okay. My question
You're
was-
welcome to ride with anytime. Get a full education.
Okay.
Crappy business.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Unintended.
Mr. Milgaard, has that situation ever happened to you in your career?
The answer is no, because I always try to plan on it,
Okay,
but you never know. Things happen.
sure.
You always have to plan for things that never happen to.
Thank you.
All right, I've got somebody in the audience. If you want to come up, I'll give you, and try to keep it to a minimal of a minute or two here.
I was just wondering if you could zoom out on this property so that you can see how close the lake is. It's right there. 1,000-acre lake. Doesn't it? Yep. And there's another one off to the east. But that was my concern. Well, and it's a 1,000-acre lake. There's a lot of properties.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think what the board has to wrestle with on this one is Sugar Lake is right there. The main outlet to the lake is right down there in your lower right-hand corner, and that main outlet is running at all times, and that goes into Limestone Lake, which is over here to your right-hand side. If you come to the back portion of his property, that's all lowland. Quite a bit of that is low cattails. So there's not a lot of area. There is area, but there's not a lot of area for land applying. So it's not like he's gonna be able to do 100 loads a year, 10 loads a year. But at any rate, I mean, you will be putting it on land where your watershed is all going to that pond, to that creek that goes into Limestone Lake. So those are things to consider with land applying on this particular piece of property. As far as land applying, I work up in Sherburne County. I watch a lot of trucks right next to Palmer. I mean, literally right next to the town of Palmer. They're land applying there multiple times a day. on that lighter ground. Watched them apply it today. Do you smell it? I can't. I can smell livestock, but you don't smell that because they do treat it, they do take care of it. And, you know, they come back in, they till it behind it, the farmer does, or somebody tills it off and on, you know. So as far as land applying, that's probably one of the best things we can do. I mean, we have to be able to take care of our septics and that. So this particular property, as far as very much, but being a land applied, I would question just because of the wetlands in it, all of the watersheds in it. It can very well get into Limestone Lake, Sugar Lake. It'd be a little bit harder because all the water runs to Limestone Lake. And so, but.
Chairman, I want to say, before you even can do that though, you have to get a lot of paperwork done with the MPCA before you can even for emergency purposes, apply on any of your property.
The only one I can do without any pollution control agency paperwork is my own,
Okay.
because it's my property.
You'll have to come up, sorry, you gotta come up here because we gotta be able to get you on microphone. No, we're working with you right now. So do you want to kind of repeat what you just said so we have it on record?
Yeah, so the only one I can do legally without any paperwork being filed or any mapping or anything is my own. Because anybody with their own property, if they're in the septic business, like if you called and you had 10 acres, well, I can spread on your, if it's 10 acres of hay ground, I could spread on your ground if you so wanted me to. So again, so for me, I'm the only one that could do it without paperwork because it's my property.
Right. Do you have anything else, Jean? Ken?
Just one quick question. Would you ever have a parcel in your pocket in case you needed it for those emergencies situations?
Oh, yeah, and at all times we've got.
I mean, is there a guy you could say, okay, I'm coming at 3 a.m, is that okay?
No, because we only go to our land.
But I mean, the lands that you got contracted with.
Oh, yeah, we can go on those 24 hours a day.
Okay.
So
there is an alternative to dumping on, or I shouldn't say dumping, spreading on your property.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jess, did you have something?
Yes, I have a question. You said that you spray it around out of your truck. Your truck is pressurized.
Yep.
How would you do that on your property? Would you spray it?
Yeah,
in the
'cause that's-
pressurized truck?
That's the most efficient way to do it, and that's the best way.
And how far does the spray go?
It's
Would
about
you-
40 feet wide and 30 feet from the truck. It will spray out about
Both
30 feet
both
from the truck.
directions?
Yeah.
So it'd be.
No, it's whatever side I want it to be on.
Oh.
It can be out the back, it can be out either side.
You can't do it out of both sides at the same time?
No.
Okay, so it's just 40 feet? Okay, thank you.
When we water roads, I can do it on both sides, but I can't for doing septage. So
When you're on the road?
when we water roads, we have
Okay.
trucks that will water, we also water roads for the
Okay.
townships.
Okay.
Not with sewage, not with sewage.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a big no-no.
Okay. Thank you.
Hans, are there any adjacent residential setbacks? So there's a letter in our packet from a neighbor
So
who
it's
lives close, maybe
300 feet
adjacent?
from a house,
Okay.
600 feet from water.
And water is any open water? Oh,
Yeah, because if it got it, if it was in the pond, and stagnated, then that'd be a different deal.
So, I mean, I don't know if you've looked at it, Barry's playing around with his mouse over there right now.
I'm playing.
Are there areas of this that aren't within 600 feet of one of these water bodies?
It's already a tough piece to start with.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, Hans. I'm just trying to figure out, like, other than driving through the cattails, with a big, heavy, full truck.
Which the truck's not coming out of that.
I don't think so. It'd be the last time you ever spread on your own property, at least. Okay, I was just curious about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, concerns?
Can I address one other thing? I forgot to address the storage part of it.
Yes.
So the answer is no, we will not be storing, because it's like, if you talk to it like firewood, you know, it's how many times you handle a piece of wood before you put it in the wood stove. We don't get paid to store and handle it twice. So we only get paid to handle it once. So if we have to handle it twice, it's just not cost effective. So the answer is no, we won't be storing. So that's.
Okay. I guess we've spent a lot of time on spreading it on the land, but we haven't spent a lot of time on the size of the shed, the vehicles that'll be there, conditions of that. Other contractors' yards, we've required only certain amounts of vehicles being outside, how much stuff is stored inside. Is there any concerns with that? I know we've talked a lot about application. Do we have any concerns about the contractor's yard itself and the size of the shed for the property? All the vehicles that will be stored outside, everything has to be inside. We've done different things in the past.
Hans, is this a general location right here where the house and the sheds will go?
Yes, yep. It's actually up a little far to the north a little bit. We've
That
cleared
top
some
of that
trees,
hill?
but general area. Yep.
Top of that hill, kind of?
Yep, top of the hill.
Chairman. So Hans, your goal then is to be building a shed so that you can keep all your equipment inside?
Correct.
Is that your goal?
Yeah, and our personal things too. I mean, it's more than just
Sure.
business. It's our, you know, it's boats, it's snowmobiles,
Yeah,
it's things.
Kind of how my family does it too. So would there be a certain, would we put a restriction on how big that is? Would that be permitting?
Well, it's 70 acres, so, you know, as was discussed at another item here, I mean, they're allowed to cover 15% of that by roof surface. Any expansion, if they ever want to expand that shop or build a second shop for another piece of the business, they'll have to come back here and get a new interim use permit to include that new structure. And so, I mean, all that's handled through this board as far as, I mean, yeah, it's a really big building, but it isn't the biggest building we've seen out there either. We've seen others with multiple buildings that would total the same size. Close
And
to
we're
it.
really just doing this so everything's married together. Instead of building a cold building and a hot building, we're just building one building that's cold and hot, so.
Any other discussion?
I don't have any problem with the building size. I mean, we do it for ag all the time, and they don't come here.
I'm just throwing it out that
Yeah.
we discuss and go
Yeah.
through each.
You should have seen the horse barn I permitted today.
Mr. Chair,
Janice,
I would like to make a motion, please.
okay?
I would recommend that we approve an interim use permit for non-commercial contractor's yard in accord with the plans and narrative submitted and the discussion at the hearing with the following conditions. All work must be conducted off-site. Number 2, any change in use or expansion would require an amended IUP. 3, dwelling must be completed and property homesteaded within 1 year of this approval. Number 4, outdoor screening requirements must meet the requirements of section 155.078 of the Wright County Code of Ordinances where applicable. Number 5, township to review in 1 year with subsequent reviews at an interval established by the township. Number 6, this permit shall immediately and automatically expire upon transfer termination of any lease agreement, change in business operations or ownership, or change in homestead classification.
All right,
Second it.
I have a motion made and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just one. Again, this is pretty standard language that we use. The one question I do have for the applicant, because I can't really ask him about this until we get to this point, is a year long enough, or would the end of 2025, like December 31st, be more appropriate for house construction and homesteading?
I'm sorry, so longer than a year?
Yeah, basically
Would be awesome.
another
It's a
4 months.
project.
You'd get basically
Yeah.
another 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the commission wants to do that, we do that a lot, where we will give to the end of the year, because at this point, there's still potentially 3 more months of construction that can take place based on timing of the year. So we do like to put in a year, but I like to bring this up as an option too, because in the end, it's 3 more months to help construction. If we get a winter like last winter, it certainly could be done in a year. If you get one like the winter before, you might not be done within a year.
That would be on you, Janice, if you will give them until
you amend that?
December 31st,
2025?
Yeah, I would agree to that.
Is that
I'm
at the
okay with
second?
that.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Do we have any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same way. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, number 7 on the agenda tonight.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, they haven't been to the township yet, and so they have requested continuation to the August 29th meeting.
Okay. Do I have a motion to continue?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to continue,
To the August 29th.
to August 29th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same way. Motion carries.
Got one discussion item, Mr. Chairman?
Discussion item?
I'll turn it over to council.
Yeah, thank you.
It's my idea.
It wasn't your idea, and it got foisted on me. So, as of last Tuesday, I'm sure some of you have been informed, I became appointed as the interim county administrator, and in doing that, I was told when our truth and taxation meeting was, which is December 12th. And I looked at my calendar to put it on there and went, well, that's nice, we have a planning commission the same night. So we have conflicting meetings in this room, which we specifically try to avoid, where the county board needs to meet to hold their annual truth and taxation, which starts at 6, and usually is done by 7:30, but could go as late as 8, depends on how many people show up and how long the public would like to speak. So we're presenting you with an option of we could continue to hold the same day at the same time and try to hopefully meet at 7:30, but could be as late as 8, and maybe try to limit the agenda. But the problem is we have a big gap in there between November 7th and December 12th. So if we limit it, we could be squeezing some applicants in that time frame, but it is also December. So you never know what you're gonna get. The other option is we could move the date to the 5th or the 19th. I would prefer to try to keep it on the 12th if we can, but it's up to the planning commission at the end of the day.
And in December, it is a 6:30 meeting, so either,
Oh,
if you
that's
want to
true.
keep
It's
it
a
there,
true- yeah. Thank you,
that's
Barry.
why this is on,
Yep.
is because we can move it to 7:30 and hope that the truth of taxation is done by then, or move the date. That's kind of what we're,
Why don't we just move it to 8 if it sounds like,
Yeah.
if it goes late at 7:30, if it goes really late, it's 8 o'clock, and
I think what we can do is we can do 7:30. We just can't start the meeting before 7:30. Correct. We can start the meeting at 8, and if the truth and taxation is still going on, we'll open the doors. There'll be plenty
Yeah.
of room for people in here, and they can learn something about taxes before they
Well, here was
get their home extended business.
Right, here was my concern about that, was if you want their meeting to go longer, make sure you have a bunch of people show up here while it's still going on.
That is a
Good
good
point.
idea.
Very
True.
good point.
Yes.
To me, it would just make more sense rather than
just notice it
causing
at
a
8.
problem. Notice
could-
it for 8 o'clock, don't move the date, and if you want to try and limit the stuff that's on the agenda, great, but
We'll get through it.
I would agree with Pat on this.
I think that works.
Go ahead.
Gee, are we still
What?
on the record
Write
for
that
that,
down.
Yeah,
Cheryl?
can we put that in
Write
the
that
notes?
down.
Yeah.
We do it all the time in township. Every year, we have our truth and taxation hearing at 7, township meeting right after, and sometimes it goes later than 8 o'clock, so we just continue it that way and start the
They
meeting when we're
typically
done.
are short.
Yeah, it's usually an hour.
Yeah,
Everybody's happy with the county and their taxes, so they don't come and
they
complain.
don't come.
No, let's say
We do good work here at the
they know they're
county.
not gonna do a darn thing.
Keep that in mind, December 12th.
So, want
It
to
doesn't
say
mean you
what?
get to get here early, Dan.
Yeah,
I have a conflict, I'm gonna have to move.
so, I guess it's a consensus, we stay with the 12
At 7:30.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock.
8
Go
o'clock.
with 7:30. I'm being optimistic, I think, because then,
You've been through a couple of them already, right?
one.
One.
But I did a lot more, I did more school board and they didn't even last that long, and there are more people on school board that come.
It's my first presentation on it. I'll keep it short, Jeannie.
Hey, he's a lawyer. If you had a lawyer say, I'm gonna keep it short before, that's guaranteed the longest presentation you've sat through. And
Pat,
you know
I
it,
don't
and
work
you
for
know
a big firm, though. I don't
you-
get paid by the
yeah,
minute.
That's fine. You
I'm
can
salaried.
try it.
Jinxed it.
Try that all
I have
you
to
want.
speak on Greg's behalf, he is short. Always, he's always short. Now,
see.
Pat,
A letter from a county attorney is less than a page. A letter from his firm doesn't start until page 10.
Wow. Gotta put pictures in there too.
So are we starting at 7:30?
On December 12th.
Yeah.
Or 8,
Huh?
or
On
8.
December 12th.
Quarter to 8?
I said
We'll start-
or 8.
7:30.
7:30
Oh,
and 8.
apparently,
we'll
yeah.
do 7:30, and if it goes past, that's tough. I mean, it's not gonna
We'll all
be a
be
big deal, is it?
sitting there, just be more people in the audience.
I'm gonna complain
See
about
how-
taxes.
How the commissioners handle the taxation
There you
for a
go.
half hour.
We'll tell the commissioners that they keep their comments short.
It'll be up to you, Jeannie, to keep
What
it
time on
moving.
the 12th?
That's right.
So what's the consensus on the 12th?
7:30.
Let's shoot for
7:30
7:30.
and the 12.
Let's shoot for 7:30, and if we have to wait a half hour, we'll wait a half hour. That's okay.
then it
We'll
gets
start when they're done.
If we change the date, then it gets tricky with Christmas in there.
It does. You go to the 19th and you're
It's
near
too long.
Christmas, you go
No, we.
up a
just leave
week.
it alone.
It's,
Just leave
yeah.
it alone.
Yeah.
Greg, do you know, did they reserve 11:05 too?
I don't know. Probably just this
Cheryl.
room.
Well, we can always have them sitting, if anybody's
Yeah.
here and it runs late, we can just sit in 11:05.
Yeah, we'll just have to notify people, put signs up, planning commission starting at 7:30. We can do that.
Oh,
Well, we'll do the public portion of it at 7.
Did we have a timesheet in
they better
here?
not charge us.
Did we have a timesheet in here?
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second?
Yep.
We're done.
Discussion?